Back in the day, we suspected that the Sentients were the first truly alien race of Warframe, but since then we found that they too are a result of humanity screwing around with stuff they didn't understand. So today, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado and or procrastination, I give you the Sentients! For realsies this time. These rosy red ruffians were originally created by a pre-Old War Archimedean named Perintol and his corpus underlings. They were designed as hyper-adaptive drones that would go out and build a hyperspace bypass to the Tau system. Presumably Vogon paperwork was taking too long. These supposedly subservient builders would then terraform worlds located there for Orokin colonization. I imagine by giving everything a coat of Dulux vivid white and slapping a bunch of gaudy gold ornaments on every available surface. Who needs oxygen when your house looks fabulous? To their credit, for once, the Orokin were initially wary of Perintol's creation, which at the time amounted to nothing more than a little black starfish that could not only regenerate lost limbs, but also grow entirely new bodies out of said stray appendages. Okay, red flag. Unfortunately for the Orokin, after a little bickering amongst themselves, the executors decided to allow Perintol to go against Orokin law and continue developing the Sentients into the murder bots with daddy issues they were always destined to be. To be fair to Ballas and his little band of bureaucrats, Perintol had coaxed them over to his side by revealing that the Sentients had a flaw. This flaw was that exposure to the Void and its energies would poison them, thereby interfering with both their regenerative and adaptive capabilities. This meant that once the Sentients had made the journey to Tau, they would not be able to return without weakening themselves substantially and becoming effectively sterile. What exactly would have stopped them from slaughtering the Orokin that followed in their footsteps should they have turned on their creators is beyond me, but I suppose considering some of the decisions the Orokin made succeeding this lack of foresight shouldn't really be surprising at this point. At some point after this, the Sentients returned to the Origin system in a new form that was hardened by the perils they'd faced out in open space to wage war on their creators. What exactly caused this not-so-shocking betrayal hasn't yet been revealed, but it's been speculated that either the Sentients did the age-old Skynet song and dance of their own newly developed volition, or, and even I'll admit this is a stretch, they were somehow rewritten by something out there beyond the Origin system. This could be actual for realsies aliens, the man in the wall, or whatever. Who knows? It's safe to assume one day we'll get the truth out of DE, but for now we're in the dark. How unusual. As we well know by now, the Sentients kicked the gold-plated crap out of the Orokin, countering any and all advanced tech that was thrown at them. In their desperation, the Orokin armed the survivors of the Zariman 10-0 instant with their own shiny new Warframes and shoved them out to the front lines as a last-ditch effort for survival. Fortunately, the Sentients were forced back by the Tenno's void-based powers and more simplistic martial fighting styles, which, when combined, trumped the sheer resilience that the Sentients displayed. In response to this impending defeat, a sentient named Hunhow disguised his youngest child Natar as a human to act as a mole who would destroy the Empire from within. Blah blah blah, love and motherhood, Natar becomes Lotus, the remaining Sentients go into hibernation to hide, the Orokin are eradicated by the Tenno, and rather than exterminating, Lotus tucks her murderous little kiddywinks in for nap time. We're not really here to talk about the old war, but you've kinda gotta cover this stuff to put the nutty old murder machines into context. Wind the clock back a little bit to when the Orokin were getting butchered by the Tenno, and we find ourselves on Earth, where a sentient is hovering about knocking down cities like a proper little kaiju. As I've been over Sire's vigil before, we won't go into detail, but suffice to say this sentient discovered that Kuva, or more specifically Temple Kuva, sourced from the mysterious living skyscraper named the Unum, could cure the sentients of their baked-in weakness to the Void, thus restoring their ability to reproduce, which would be bad. Fortunately, the sentient in question was destroyed, and its fragments now wander the plains of Eidolon with little to no direction, so hopefully that little snippet of information might stay hidden for a little bit longer. Recently, the Sentients have shown signs of awakening, with crotchety old Grandpa Hunhow being the first out of bed, sending his fragments to get the lay of the land and attempting to correct the deviation his daughter made from the plan to wipe out humanity. Hunhow has attacked us several times since his awakening, firstly revealing himself whilst trying to open the sentient tombs on Uranus, then again when he used Stalker to attack the Tenno Reservoir on Lua, and again when he attempted to assume control of poor old Cephalon Suda as a virus through the Cephalon Weave. We've beaten him every time, but you do have to wonder what it would be like if we were facing the Sentients in full rather than just one solitary angry old spaceship. Other than old Gramps, we know of only one other named sentient, and that is, of course, our dearest mother Lotus. Or, as she was originally named, Natar. After defecting to the Tenno's side, Lotus has been our guide, our teacher, and the object of many an Oedipus complex. In many ways, she replaced the Tenno's original guardian Margulis, who scooped up the poor little demons and cared for them when no other would. Whilst both of these lovely ladies are eerily similar in many aspects, they may be connected in as of yet unrevealed and shocking ways! We currently have many conflicting sources that talk about said connection, so right now everything's a little puzzling, shall we say. The Chains of Harrow leads us to believe that Lotus and Margulis are separate entities, in that the Red Veil priestess Palladino seems convinced that Lotus made herself in Margulis' image from the dreams of the Tenno. In this quest, Lotus even references Margulis as a separate person, saying, "I protect them," as she did, which firmly implies they're different people, right? So here's where everything gets a little bit screwy. Later on, in the Apostasy Prologue quest, Lotus converses with Ballas, who looks like he narrowly avoided inheriting a chocolate factory. Ballas seems convinced the connection runs deeper, even referring to Lotus by name as Margulis. Interestingly though, this happens just after Ballas unplugs Lotus from her throne, which looks somewhere between Tenno and Sentient in design. Ladies and gentlemen, please don your tinfoil hats for this next bit. Now, we're almost certain that Margulis died at the hands of the Horican Executor's Jade Light, which appears to be some method of disintegration as referenced in the crewman synthesis entry. This would imply that no body was left for the Sentients to, repurpose, shall we say. So, my initial theory that Natar, being the throne, puppeting Margulis' body with the two comprising Lotus as we know her, has kind of gone out the window. Now, it could be that Ballas is balls out of the pristine white bath insane and is simply desperately hanging on to any image of his former lover at any cost. Or it could be that Margulis' work with transference, or Ballas' sneaky intervention with that delicious cure-all Kuva, meant that somehow Marge's consciousness ended up in Natar's faux human body, mixing with the sentient in her and resulting in the Lotus we know and love. That first option would certainly explain Palladino's line about Lotus making herself in Marge's image, and the second is given credence by Ballas seeming pretty damn confident in her identity. Either way, it would also explain Natar's unexpected change of heart just before the end of the war, and as a bonus it even sort of squares away that loading screen message about implantation I'm so bloody obsessed with. Now, obviously don't take this as fact or me telling you what to believe. This mystery has slowly had its layers peeled away ever since we started asking who Lotus actually is, and while I'm sure we'll get to the bottom of it one day, for now, we can but speculate. Getting kind of bored of saying that. Hopefully, with Lotus being a focal point in the sacrifice, the wait won't be too long, but you know the drill by now. Insert soon TM meme and or delayed joke here. Finally, just to re-ground ourselves, let's touch on the various sentient enemies we've encountered thus far. Let's start with Hunhow's fragments. Firstly, there were the Oculists. Incorporeal scouts who face down danger with all the courage of me confronting any body of water deeper than a swimming pool. Ugh. These guys are known to run back home to get their big brothers as soon as somebody interrupts their fact-finding expedition. Said brothers are the melee-focused conquilists who angrily try to ballet you to death, kudos for eschewing traditional gender stereotypes, and the ranged-leaning battleists who lob explosives at you and provide a laser light show to give Bro's performance some pizzazz. There's also the Eradicists, which boil down to Hunhow's millions of World of Warcraft avatars, but they've only shown up once, when Gramps was trying to overtake Cephalon Suda. Next up, we'll cover the Eidolons, which seems to refer to the lost fragments of the unnamed sentient that attacked the Unum all those years ago. The first of these guys are the Vombalists, drones that hover about the plains in pairs, being nothing more than a general nuisance. That is, until you get their dad mad. The Terrorist is a heavily armed walker sentient that clomps about the plains in a huff, trying to find its missing arm, which it has for some reason replaced with a tree. If you should so choose to engage this stroppy little madam, eventually hordes of Vombalists will come to aid dear old dad, and let me tell you, a walk in the plains they are no longer. Currently, these are all the sentient enemies we've faced in the game so far, but DE, quite predictably, has plans for more. 2 additional Terrorist-like Eidolons named Gantulists and Hydralists, or Gary and Harry, are to be added at some point later this year. We don't really know much about them aside from the fact that they are both twice as large as old Terry and have varying ability sets. Surprisingly, beyond them we have our very own Sentinels, who apparently bear some connection to the Sentients themselves as some sort of prototype. They generally hover about being helpful and thankfully not making bad jokes written for a 10-year-old audience that will inevitably use Daddy's credit card to fill the corporate sinkhole that exists in the place of the studio I once respected. Ahem. Next, we have the sentient dropships that aren't quite in yet, and they're supposed to resupply the Battleists and the Conquilists as first seen in the Tombs of the Sentient trailer all that time ago. There are even larger sentient ships that will at some point be made into their own tile sets. Ooh, I just can't wait. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is your lot. We still know very little about what made the Sentients into the killing machines that they are today, but as we march ever forward on our journey towards the heat death of the universe, I can say with reasonable certainty that the answers will probably come up at some point. I mean, they wouldn't do that to us, right? 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 Greetings, friends. I hope you're all having an acceptable planetary revolution. Thank you as always for watching. If you enjoyed this foray into the murderous machinations of these mechanical maniacs, you can press the like button to give a bouncing baby Titania her wings. And should you desire to see any more of my erroneous drivel, you can subscribe to my channel for regular updates. If you'd like to talk about the lore, you can comment down below, or if you'd like a private dance, you can join my Discord at the link in the description. As always, guys, I've been Luke, this has been Loreframe, and you've been tremendous.
Catch you later, noids.